Good morning. I'm Olivier Pomel, Chief Executive Officer at Datadog, and I'd like to welcome you to Datadog's 2025 Stockholders Meeting. With us today are several members of the board, as well as senior leaders of Datadog, including David Obstler, Chief Financial Officer, Kerri, General Counsel and Secretary, and Yuka Broderick, Head of Investor Relations. Finally, I'd like to introduce Bill Four and Tim DeKay of Deloitte Touche LLP, Datadog's Auditor, who are available to respond to appropriate questions. The meeting will now officially come to order. We will proceed with the formal business of the meeting as set forth in your Notice of Annual Meeting and Proxy Statement. After the formal part of our meeting, we will give you an opportunity to ask questions. Will the Secretary please provide a report regarding the mailing of the Notice of the Meeting and the Stockholder List?
I have at this meeting a complete list of the stockholders of record of our Class A and Class B common stock on April 9, 2025, the record date for this meeting. I also have an affidavit certifying that on April 18, 2025, a Notice of Annual Meeting of Stockholders of Datadog was deposited in the United States Mail to stockholders of record.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Barry Shapiro of Broadridge, who I'm appointing to act as Inspector of Election at this meeting. Mr. Shapiro has taken an oath of office to execute his duties impartially. We will file this oath with the records of the meeting.
I've been informed by the Inspector of Election that proxies have been received for approximately 91% of the aggregate voting power of the outstanding shares of common stock entitled to vote at this meeting. This constitutes a quorum for the meeting, and we may now carry out the official business of the meeting.
We will now proceed with the formal business of this meeting. There are 4 proposals to be considered by the stockholders.
The time is now 2:32 on Tuesday, June 3, 2025, and the polls are now open for voting on all matters to be presented. The agenda and rules of conduct for the meeting are posted on the annual meeting portal. We will address questions during the Q&A portion of the meeting. If you have a question, please submit it in the fields below Ask a Question on the bottom left-hand corner of the annual meeting portal.
The first item of business is the election of 3 Class 3 directors to serve until the 2028 Annual Meeting and until their successors are elected. The nominees for Class 3 directors are T.T. Cole, Matthew Jacobson, and Julie Richardson. The second item of business is the approval on an advisory basis of the compensation of our named executive officers, as disclosed in our proxy statement. The third item of business is the ratification of the selection by the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors of Deloitte Touche LLP as the independent registered public accounting firm of Datadog for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025. The fourth and final item of business is the approval of the amendment and restatement of our amended and restated certificate of incorporation to provide for the exculpation of officers as permitted by Delaware law and make additional non-substantive and clarifying changes. The Secretary will now describe the voting procedures.
If you've already voted, there's no need to vote now unless you'd like to change your vote. If you've not voted and you'd like to vote now, or if you'd like to change your vote, click the Vote Here button at the bottom center of the annual meeting portal. We'll pause for a moment to give anyone who hasn't yet voted a chance to vote. As a reminder, each share of Class A common stock is entitled to 1 vote, and each share of Class B common stock is entitled to 10 votes. The time is 2:34, and the polls are now closed for voting. The report of the Inspector of Election covering the proposals presented at this meeting is as follows. 1, the proposal to elect each of T.D. Cole, Matthew Jacobson, and Julie Richardson as a Class 3 director of Datadog is carried. 2, the proposal to approve the compensation of our named executive officers, as disclosed in our proxy statement, is carried. 3, the selection of Deloitte Touche LLP as Datadog's independent registered public accounting firm for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025, is ratified. 4, the proposal to approve the amendment and restatement of our amended and restated certificate of incorporation, as disclosed in our proxy statement, is carried. We expect to report our final voting results on a current report on Form 8-K to be filed with the SEC within 4 business days after the end of this meeting.
This concludes the formal portion of today's meeting. We will now entertain questions from stockholders.
No questions have been submitted.
There being no questions, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
That concludes it.